Hello, good afternoon. My name is Juan Bautista Propato. I'm currently working for Football West in the beautiful Southwest region here based in Basselton. And today we have the great honor and pleasure to talk to a friend, mate, Gareth. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, thanks, Juan. Great to have a chance to speak with you. It's been a year or so, but yeah, good chance to speak some football in these crazy times.
Yeah, no, thank you for appreciate your time. And yeah, no, it's good to get the ball rolling and thinking about the different things. But tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I guess my story, if we rewind maybe 20 years ago, I grew up in New Zealand. I played senior football, and out of high school, I did a bachelor's of sport coaching degree in Canterbury. And I finished that and didn't really want to go straight into the workforce. So an opportunity came up to go over to the States on a soccer scholarship. So I was in North Carolina for a couple of years and studied a PE degree. And I guess the vision or the dream was to make it as a professional footballer, as a lot of talented players would also think. But the ultimate reality was I probably wasn't good enough, hard enough in a foreign country, being the States, where there's challenges regarding visa spots and all that stuff. So I ended up coming back to New Zealand, kind of at a crossroads. I knew I wanted to make a living from football, from soccer, but it's probably at that stage I realised, I probably can't do that from playing. Can't support, a family longer term just from the playing side of it. So I kind of threw myself into other opportunities to grow in the football industry. So coaching obviously is an obvious one. Went through coaching qualifications, took various different teams, and about 12 months later, an opportunity presented itself to go in as a technical director at a club in Christchurch. So I ended up doing that for 7 years. They were fantastic because it allowed me to not only work full time in football, but had a really supportive board who knew I wanted to aspire to be the best coach I could be. So I was able to coach both within the club and then externally within our region, our federation, various New Zealand football programs. And from there, that kind of led to an opportunity with New Zealand football, coaching at national team level at under 17s and then 20s and then the senior team. So that was based up in Auckland up until 9 months ago, where my wife, who works for Nike, had been headhunted for a few years to move to Melbourne, and we saw an opportunity to take that, and we moved over, and I was fortunate in some respects that I had some good connections at Melbourne Victory prior to coming over. With Rob Sherman was here before he went into the FFA. Rob was my old boss at New Zealand Football, and here I am now currently as the W League assistant coach, and I work as a head coach within our boys academy setup.
Very good. So it's really, although you are young, kind of long history already coaching, isn't it? So amazing experience. So now in your current role with Melbourne Victory, I know unfortunately now we are not allowed to go outside yet. What will be normally a week that you will be with Victory?
Yeah, so obviously the W League season had just concluded prior to our lockdown, so we were able to complete a full season there. The academy was already up and running, so before lockdown we were 4 days a week on the grass with our academy groups, as well as playing in the local Victoria state leagues. So yeah, with all of that being put on hold, we've worked reasonably hard behind the scenes with a lot of different departments within the club to pull together an online, effectively curriculum. So we use a couple of our academy boys, our A-League boys, our youth boys, and W League women to pre-record individualized training sessions based on themes, based on terminology and progressions linked to our own curriculum. So now an academy player will have access to 2 of those technical individual sessions per week that they execute in their own environments. They're also prescribed 2 strength activities, so same concept, pre-recorded strength and mobility work, which is specific to their own age group. So that they will complete two of those S&Cs. We use Strava as a running app, so they'll have 2 conditioning sessions as well. And we use kind of an online platform where, as an academy head coach, we use historical footage from either A-League or W-League around the theme of the week, kind of put together some clips, pose some questions to our teams, and they need to fill out sort of responses, either multi-choice or a bit of a detailed comments box. So basically trying to touch on the tactical understanding and game awareness perspective as well. So I think within a week there's 6 different contacts that each player will be required to complete.
Before or now? Before the lockdown?
Now, currently now.
Yeah, now.
Before lockdown, for on-grass trainings, which incorporated 2 sports science sessions as well. We would film the games on game day, and the players would feedback through providing some clips around some of the tactical learnings. But now in lockdown, I'll have everything's online. So 2 technical, 2 physical, 2 strength, 2 conditioning, 2 tactical.
Do you also have like Zoom meetings once a week with the players to interact and ask questions and see how it's done?
Yeah, we kind of use those tactical time blocks or classroom blocks to come together. So we double up. We have our 13s and 14s work together, and our 15s and 16s will work together in those times as well.
Very good. If we think about when you were coaching New Zealand, the 17 and the 20, for example, I remember the 2016 World Cup in Jordan. You guys lost the first game against Mexico 5-0, and then you have a really tough game against Spain that, of course, in men's we know is a power nation, but in women's with Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico put a lot of money, and that team finished third. The World Cup as well. You have an amazing game. You were 0-0 until minute 80 or 81. But it was a massive recovery from that first game. I believe to that second game, you did have a few chances to win that game. The question is, I guess you remember that game.
Yep. Sure.
What did you change to have a completely different outlook from that really hard game against Mexico to be, head to head against one of the candidates to win the World Cup?
Yeah, interesting question. I get asked this a few times because there's also some parallels with the next cycle with the under-20s. In the following 2 years, we played Holland the first game, went reasonably well, didn't play our best, and then we played France the next game and drew 0-0. I guess going back to maybe talking about both, because they have a lot of similarities. Coming from New Zealand, we have a lot of limitations versus a lot of the bigger footballing nations. A lot of that will come around finances, lack of preparation going into the World Cup, e.g. opportunities to compete against teams of a similar nature. So we kind of turned up in first game against Mexico in Jordan. It wasn't until maybe, I think it was 11 weeks prior, we had a mini tour to China, where we played China, Japan, and Canada in 3 friendlies. And it wasn't until those 3 games that we became aware of what the level was actually like at international standard at that age group. So everything we'd done prior, we almost kind of discarded because it just didn't have any relevance. We kind of then used that pre-tournament or a couple months out from the World Cup, and then really tried to modify intensity and everything we did, because we now knew and the players had seen and felt what that level looked and felt like in order for us to prepare. But that was only 11 weeks before the World Cup. Mexico had been in basically full-time programs for 2 years, so opportunities to play against the US and Canada and Central American teams often. So we were very much underdone going into that. But that's beside the by. Where I felt very proud of that performance was we, regardless of the scoreline, we still tried to play our playing style and philosophy, which was directed to our national curriculum and a national style, which was starting to try to play more possession-based football, play through the thirds, combination football, and trying to change our DNA. This was sort of 5 years ago, which was the starting point of that process. Because at 17s, it's about learning, accumulating experiences. It's not about at 17s, it's a step towards, hopefully the senior national team. So I was very, very proud of the way that the players stuck to our task and we played in that style. We were punished for some mistakes, and the end result was 5-0. So whilst on paper it didn't look great, it was probably one of my more prouder coaching moments. I guess the question that you asked is what do we do different between that and 3 days later we played Spain. Similarly, in the under-20s, we lost 2-1 to Holland. 3 days later, 2 days later, we played France. So having that first game in the World Cup was our preparation to kind of get us back to the level that we needed. So that was one thing that happened naturally. Second thing with Kiwis, we're very proud. It hurt us losing 5-0. We obviously weren't trying to just participate. We were trying to compete. So that was an added, bit of a wake up and added motivation to that. And then thirdly, playing, the powerhouse nations of Spain and France was such an awesome opportunity that the players were really tuned in to what was asked of them in terms of our preparation. The only thing we really changed was, I remember having the conversation with Tony Reddings, who was the senior coach. Rob Sherman was a part of it as well. And I said, look, do we continue down exactly the same, trying to refine our process and potentially, have a similar scoreline? Or do we use this as a chance to, again, test the players' learning, put them in a new environment, adapt some things slightly to maybe set ourselves up to be a little bit more compact, harder to break down, but maybe have less opportunities to go forward. And we kind of agreed that, whilst we don't want to go completely away from our playing philosophy and style, it's an opportunity to adapt and put the players in, a test to try something slightly different. So we did both of that for both of those 2 games. And we were, it's not like we parked the bus by any stretch. We had opportunities. We potentially, the Spain game, we just weren't good enough in the attacking transition moment. And then the France game, it was an evolution, I guess, of that Spain game. And we spoke to the group at the under-20s level about that Spain game and how close we were and how we can compete. And more recently, the under-17s, Leeuwin, finished 3rd in the World Cup. So they've used both of those, that learning is, look, we can compete. We just have to believe in it. And we have to just adapt and stay together and refine what we did. And we rode our luck at times, but, it was a great experience for those players and the coaching staff as well.
Yeah, and I remember both World Cups and then the follow-up with Leon, isn't it? He was with the under-20s or the under-17s?
So Leon had the 20s when I had 17s, and then he had the 17s when I had
the 17, when they won on penalty shootouts, isn't it?
Yep.
And they were 3rd in the World Cup.
That's right. Yep.
So in a way, it's like what you say about, well, I'm Argentina, but I'm also Kiwi, I feel it. And you could see the All Blacks and many of the Kiwi athletes, the underdogs, and they kind of like that, isn't it? Especially when they kind of, okay, now we need to prove everyone that what is a Kiwi Spirit to bring it on, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. And, you know, the challenges of being in New Zealand, being so far away from everybody, being perceived as not a footballing nation, you know, we don't really know what we're doing. It helps galvanise us. You know, we're a proud nation of, you know, proud to represent ourselves, you know, globally, sporting or otherwise. And we don't like to lose, you know, and we don't like to be told that we can't do something. So I think if someone says, look, you know, you're not expected to win, or, you know, oh, it's well done for qualifying for the World Cup, have a good time. But no, actually, you know, we kind of, you know, we want to be doing more than that. And I think every year, every cycle going back, you know, 10 years ago, we've got better and better and better, and we've learned. And I think we've started, certainly at age group level, garnered a lot of respect from those more traditional footballing nations at youth levels, both boys and girls.
Mm. Yeah, no, the good point. The boys as well, isn't it? With the was Danny Hay the coach that they lost against Brazil on penalties in a really tough game. So, so moving back now to Australia, how was this year's experience in the W League with Melbourne victory?
It was incredible. You know, coming into a professional environment is something I'd always want to do, and I was keen to get in part of it, but not just with anybody. I wanted to work alongside certainly a head coach that I can continue to improve from, learn from, and an organisation that really, you know, puts the women's football kind of on as close to a par as they can with the men. And Melbourne Victory certainly ticked both of those boxes with, you know, with Jeff Hopkins as well. So it was a great opportunity, a lot of things to sit back and reflect upon and kind of go, you know, what can we do differently next year? But we had a pretty good season. We had a tough start. The group last year were premiers, so they qualified for the Asian Club Championships, the Asian Champions League this year. So that was a trip to Korea in sort of our second or third week of the season. So we had a very tough start. We had Sydney away, Brisbane Roar away. Then we're off on a plane to Korea for 3 games in 6 days, and then came back. We had to play Western Sydney away. So we had an incredibly difficult start to the season. And then kind of from there, we found our feet in a bit of a formula that was more consistent throughout the week, and the players started to really perform. I thought we had a fantastic staff that, you know, we all got on well. We were all, you know, entrusted in our own little departments to bring to life our own personalities and our own qualities, which was great. And yeah, the players ended up finishing second in the league. Unfortunately, we lost our home semi-final to Sydney FC. So again, a little bit more, you know, hunger there for next year to refer back to. But it was a great opportunity, you know, training, you know, 5 days a week, the travel to all the different parts of Australia. I guess the big difference between international football and club football is you have a game every week to prepare for. So unlike, you know, international football, we go camp to camp or tour to tour and then maybe an event, you know, by looking at Perth this week, we review that game, what do we learn? And then we move on to Brisbane Roar, and they'll bring different challenges more readily. So it was a great opportunity and thoroughly enjoyed it.
It's an interesting comment because Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid, you know, they always want him to coach Argentina. And he said he really enjoyed working in a club, and almost like you say, that day by day and the weekend. And I guess it was that transition from you to coaching under 17 and 20 of the Ferns, and now moving into a club. And it's almost like week day by day, week by week, and you assess who are you going to play this weekend, and different dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you know, it's even different within the club setting from W League to Academy. Whilst it's kind of more regular contact, it's also a very different kind of approach. So the W League is about recovery and preparing professional athletes to perform the next week, and then the week after, then the week after. Whereas our academy training is about, longer term process. It's not about performing necessarily today or tomorrow. It's about building those lifelong habits and building blocks so that players can perform at that level for a long period of time in the future. Versus in the national team setup where you've got very short, limited time to connect players from different environments to the same page in order to go and perform against quite often opposition that have been together for longer as well.
Yeah, no, good point. So if you think about from coaching at club level, then National Women's League, national teams, now back into a club level, what do you see are the 3 qualities that you have or you say a coach should have?
There's multiple qualities, obviously, but the 3 that kind of come to mind, and I'm not necessarily great at all of these, but there are areas that I've identified as important and things that I need to keep working at myself. I think building meaningful relationships with your players is non-negotiable. It's critical. It doesn't necessarily have to be mates with them. Your job is not to be necessarily friends with them. I think if you can develop a friendship as well, then great. But your job is to help them grow, and it's easier to help them grow if they trust you and buy into what you do. So, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and Stuart Lancaster, who coached England rugby, put it really well. If you look down on a playing field, you're the coach and you've got all the players. It should be like a spider's web where there's a connection between every player and the coach. And the thicker the spider web, the greater the connection between the player and, in this case, the coach is. So the thicker that relationship. So I think it's something you can do every day. You can slowly thicken that relationship. But you could also erode it, I think, by the way that you talk or act to players as well. So certainly building meaningful relationships is kind of linked to the next one, which is around communication. So I think what I've developed or what I've learned and felt is players want to have honest conversations, honest feedback. They don't necessarily always like it, but I think they respect it more. And quite often we just don't have the time to waste. So therefore, having honest conversations is critical. So, my very first boss in football land, the very first day, he said to me, communication is the key. And if you get that right, then everything else will kind of flow. So I think communication is critical. And I think with the modern footballer, modern youth person, younger person, there's different ways to communicate, different ways to interact, technology as well. And I think how we can harness those things, especially with today's generation of younger players, I think is a good way to do that. And I guess thirdly, from a position of some sort of profile, be it national team, be it working for federation, be it working for a club, people are always going to look up to sort of those, or potentially look up to people in those roles. So I feel we need to, or even as a technical director of a club, you're seen as sort of a figurehead. So I think we have to be both visible and accessible to people to talk to answer questions, to show the way, to whatever. I think quite often it's I've certainly been guilty of this in the past. It's easier to hide behind your laptop in your office and not go out, or stand in the corner with your jacket on and kind of come across as unapproachable. I think we need to be a little bit more willing to be both visible and accessible to parents, to other coaches, to players, certainly. I think those 3 things are all areas that I'm trying to work on every day as well.
Yeah, I guess play development, like coaching development, you never finish to develop, isn't it? We're always looking for new areas. How can we do things we do really well? How can we do better? And the things that we are not doing as often as we should be looking into sometimes like, oh, I'm not very good at this. Well, we need to do more often. I need to work on it.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important way of developing as in whatever industry is become a little bit more aware of your own strengths, but also your own areas to develop, and then have an external person, be it a mentor or a boss or a colleague or someone that you can trust and have a relationship that they can be honest with as well. And maybe it's two-way, you kind of buddy up with somebody and you offer them feedback and they do the same in reverse, and again with the sole purpose of trying to improve and get better at whatever it is we do. I think that's critical as well.
And following on that, what you were saying in your answer about the mentor, who do you think, if you have one or two mentors in your coaching career that make a huge impact, and why?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the biggest under resourced and underutilized component of development. I think I have one mentor that I have had for a while. His name's Koresh Monsef. He works, you'll know Koresh, he was in Canterbury and moved up to Northern football and works in the coach education space with New Zealand football. So Koresh was the head coach of the club side I played for when I came back from the US. And it was sort of a big eye-opener of something quite different, and kind of exposed me to lots of different detail. And I think it was around that time when I realised that my playing career, I still wanted to play, and I still did play, but the coaching career was going to supersede it. And I think he saw that in me early on, and kind of, helped invest some energy into me as well. So I'd certainly, use him a lot to sound ideas off, to he talks a lot of theory to me about things which, blows my head. I have to go away and let it settle and find some answers for myself, and then we can have the next stage conversation. So I think having a mentor, someone who is more experienced, maybe gone through the same pathway, not necessarily in the same sport. I do a lot of reading and listening to coaches of other sporting codes. Coaching is similar in regardless of the sport, so there's a lot of correlation. I think you've got to apply it to your own context. So I definitely encourage people to find a mentor. I'd also encourage people, and this is something I've started to do a little bit in the last 12 months, is to be a mentor as well. I think by being a mentor, you're having to, simplify your learnings and your knowledge and communicate it in such a way that maybe a person below your current level can make sense of it and use it to their context. And that's not the easiest task in the world to do either. So I think, giving a bit of yourself to others to help them grow, also you get a lot of growing out of that yourself, as well as having a mentor above you.
Yeah, that's a really good point, isn't it? Sometimes even you talk to the players and then it's like, I'm talking Spanish, and no, we didn't get that one. What can you explain again? And it kind of like you need to find a way. So like you say, if you do it all the time and you are mentor to other people, when you want to share your ideas, your philosophy or something, it is easier because you are doing that all the time. And it's like playing football. The more you play in a good environment, good place around you, you get better and better, isn't it? And I guess it links as well to what you say about the quality of a good coach, having those connections with the people and have the visibility and approachability for people to come to you as well, because if they want to be mentored by you or want to share ideas, you need to be approachable. If you're in a corner like this, they are not going to come to you. So just to finish up the interview, I could be talking about football and coaching with you for hours. What do you think, or what would be your recommendation to players and coaches during these times, these crazy times?
Well, hopefully we don't have too much longer to go, but we don't know. So I guess my advice is utilize this time away from the grass to refine one area or two areas. I wouldn't, don't try and do everything at once, but one or two areas that you want to get better at. Quite often, we talk to our players, you don't have to work on always your weaknesses. It's always, or it can be good to sometimes work on your strengths, make them really, really good. So, for me, I've been quite busy sort of tidying up my learnings from my last, 8 to 10 years of different coaches, different, workshops, different webinars that I've been at. I've got a whole lot of notes, a lot of, books I've highlighted and kind of never really, they just sit there on a shelf. So I've started to bring that together and kind of think more around what is really important to me and how I want to, my principles and my values and my philosophy, and trying to make that a little bit more of a, more concrete for me. So it's sort of one project I'm doing. And I guess the other project for me is I've tried to get away from football. I've just come off the back of, really full on 6-7 months with the W League. So, with limited time to do work-wise, I've found myself more time to do other things. So I've actually deliberately done, gone away from football and done other things. I've been lucky enough to chip away at renovating our house. So a bit like the players, I think, you can burn yourself out quite quickly if you do too much of the same. For me, I love football, and it's been a passion, but I've also been full-time in football for 11 years. So opportunities for me to get away and do something different help refresh and recharge the batteries. So when I do work football related, I'm able to give my best, all 100% all of the time. So that's probably unique to me, coming off the back of a full-on season. I think everybody else will probably be itching to get back out on the grass. But my advice would be pick one or two areas and focus on tidying up or strengthening some of those areas in your own world.
Yeah, very good points. And from my own experience as well, what you say about switching off. My wife Gabby, she doesn't like football. I hope she doesn't hate football. And many times people, she doesn't like football. Why is she not coming to coaching course? Why is she not there? Like, because I used to bring her over. She looked ugly, not happy. And I say, you don't like it, no? No, don't come. Oh, good. So when we are together, I don't talk about football. We don't, okay, sometimes we do watch football together, or I watch football. But it's about that switch off and then allowing yourself and your partner or your wife that time to be together and don't burn the other one and also yourself. So it's a good way to switch off both sides, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm always thinking football. I can't switch that off, but I can limit my conversations around football. I can limit watching football on TV. I can apply myself in other areas without not forgetting. I'm a footballer, football person, football coach, football whatever at heart. That's never going to turn off. But making sure that I'm recharged and ready to go when we're called back onto the grass is I think important for me at this stage.
Hey, anything else you want to say that we didn't cover?
No, just keep up the good work, mate. I've watched a couple of your videos, and I've watched and listened to a lot of different people do similar sort of podcasts over the last month, and I think all of you guys out there who do those things are fantastic. It's a great way to connect the football in this country, I guess, soccer community, and the more that we can share, and hopefully anyone listening to this may have picked up one thing that they thought actually that's interesting. How can I use that in my world? I think then it's worth the time and energy. So people like yourself, I think deserve a big congratulations to pull this stuff together and keep it up.
Thank you for your time. I remember when we met 2014. I didn't really know you at the National Women's League course workshop in Auckland. You were always, you trust me from the beginning, so you share your notes, what you did with your teams, and then with the under 17, with the under 20. So much appreciated, and now you're giving your time. So that shows that you are approachable, you are a mentor for other people. So thank you. And like you say, I think it's important for people that we want to keep learning, like you yourself want to learn as well. That you're approachable. So appreciate that, and be sure other people would say the same about you. So yeah, have a nice afternoon down there, and hopefully see you soon in Melbourne, or when you come down here, we'll catch up.
Yeah, thanks, my friend.
Thank you. Take care, my friend. Bye bye.